أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. Inshallah, we are trying this new microphone. Hopefully it will get your voice better. So this is our third week in this new version of the series. We started with the second verse of Surah Baqarah. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين. We talked about two pieces of this verse. The first piece was ذلك الكتاب. This is the book. So we talk about the book part. And then we ask questions. What does it mean that it's a book? It's a book upon which there's no question. It's like undoubted. What that means, we talk about that. Then this is a book, Hudan, it's guidance. We talked about what guidance is last week, what it should be relatable, it should be relevant, it should be about something that I do not know, like these were the things that we would expect in guidance. So it is Hudan, but then there's this part that we will study today. It's guidance for a specific type of people. It's guidance for Muttaqeen. So what that then means is if you are from within this group, you can benefit from that book. It's a guidance for you, right? It might be the best guidance, but I guess if you put Quran before a cat, it definitely is not a guidance for a cat. Or you can put the best book of medicine. It might be a guidance for Junaid, but it definitely won't be a guidance for Rayyan. He has nothing to do with medicine, so he's not interested in it whatsoever. So, Muttaqeen, ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين. Who are these? What is Muttaqeen? This will be today's discussion. And inshallah, we can move forward if we can cover the first part of it. Let's see how far we will go, inshallah. So, just to give a little bit about the word itself, the word taqwa generally, or at its root, the word means to protect yourself from something, to avoid something, like avoiding fire, or because you are aware of it is harm, so you are avoiding fire because you are conscious of what it can do to you. Muttaqeen is, as the word, sometimes translated as fear of God, or what I would prefer, and some translations take it as such, God conscious. But we will open it up. What does it mean, God conscious? Okay. And for that, I'm going to go with an example. We'll consider the example of learning, the experience of learning in college setup. Okay. And now I will have a few questions to you in this regard. How does consciousness affect learning? And again, I'm looking for the answers in terms of college education experience, okay? How does consciousness affect learning in the sense of what does it mean to be conscious of the teacher? This is going to be my first question. Second would be conscious of being a student. And the third one is going to be conscious of interactions in the college environment and resources. These are going to be my three questions. I'm showing them to you so that you set up your answers accordingly. But we will start from the first. What does it mean to be conscious of a teacher? What happens if you are not conscious of what a teacher is? What happens if you are conscious of what a teacher is? And how does it affect your learning experience? This is the question. Is it still too vague of a question? I can brush it up if it's weak. But if you have an answer, go ahead with it.
I feel like when you have a teacher, you would be like, if they're explaining something, you would be listening to them out of respect. You would not be, if there's an exam, you wouldn't be cheating because like there's a teacher who taught you and you don't want to like break this trust between you and the teacher.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Like, let's say, I mean, although I'm not claiming to be knowledgeable, in this discussion, I am at the position of a teacher. And what would it mean to be conscious of teacher versus not conscious of teacher? What I mean is, would it make a difference to you if I tell you that I barely read Arabic and I just downloaded the slides from somewhere and I'm trying to sell it to you? Versus, actually, I studied 15 years in, I don't know, what was it? In Egypt, what was this university? Al-Azhar. I studied tafsir in Al-Azhar. I am an expert of this field. Would it make a change?
I think maybe like acknowledging that your teacher knows like more than what they're telling you, or like the reasoning behind what they're telling you, as opposed to just like anyone can read the slides, right? But the teacher knows reasoning behind like, I don't know, how the concept works, for example, and has the capacity to answer questions based on the material.
Mm-hmm. So if you are aware of your teacher's capacity, would it change how much you benefit from the teacher? Because teacher is going to speak the same. But getting to know your teacher, would it change or benefit how much you benefit from the teacher? What do you think? Right.
I think in a sense, I mean, you'd be more confident going into the depth of the topic, I guess. You get more confidence in the teacher's ability to explain those confused questions. Even if it's not a very smart question, you'll be able to explain the concept.
Right. What else? What do you think, folks?
Yeah.
Getting to know your teacher. Yes, like knowing the capacity of your teacher, is it going to change how you listen? And you can apply to this lecture as well. Like if you think that just I am the random guy who starts, because in America everybody is so confident to talk about anything, right? And I attended Sunday school here and there, and I'm super excited young person who wants to do some service to religion, and I become spirituality chair, my guy. And then I start talking about Islam. Or would you listen me different? Or somebody comes and says, oh, this guy is a student of such and such and such teacher. He has been studying this topic for 50 years. Would it change how you listen to me?
I think that the more knowledge the teacher has, or the teacher is like presented as having, then it would surely increase your, I guess, at least your enthusiasm as a student. But I also, like in the example that you gave, where if you had just downloaded slides and you were to present, I think that still the fact that you are in the position of teacher automatically makes, I think you automatically start with the assumption that you have something to share that is of benefit to the student. So the student, at least being conscious of a teacher, would mean that you are in a space where you can receive like something beneficial from the person that's there, regardless. Like, because you don't always know the extent of the teacher's knowledge, but the fact that they're a teacher and you're not makes you, ready to receive.
The reason I'm highlighting this is I do experience this quite a bit when I'm teaching like computer science. There are students who took some AP credits in high school. They are the guys that are sitting at the very back seat generally, like they're overconfident. They come to the lecture with the notion of, I know. And then the teacher, it's just yet another teacher. So there's this arrogance of students starts, like the moment I start explaining something more to another student, let's say, they pull up their phone and they start playing with it. Or sometimes even when I keep talking, they say, oh, already heard about this when I was taking the AP credit, and they start playing with their phone. What is the notion here? The student is thinking that they already know, even sometimes more than the teacher. That student doesn't listen to what I teach because they have an assumption that I know and teacher doesn't know that much, right? If in this case, now Uthman is sitting right next to that student and saying that this guy, he just got, I don't know, he's the Nobel laureate in mathematics or something. Now attracting the attention of the student saying that he knows more than you do. Then the student starts saying, oh, really? Like, I thought he was just yet another college professor. So maybe I should pay more attention. So this is an important part, being aware of who the teacher is. Because the more, let's say, in high school times and whatnot, you respect your parents a lot. My kids think that I know everything. But by the time you come to college, the tone you talk to your parents change over the phone. Then you think that, well, actually, they don't know as much. They come up with a suggestion, and then you don't want to hurt their feelings, of course, but it enters from this ear and goes out from the other ear, right? Because they don't know as much. You know more at this point, right? At least you think so, right? So it really changes how I listen to if I am aware of who the teacher is. My attitude changes automatically. If I am not conscious of who the teacher is, I will make an assumption and I will not listen. Why is that relevant? This book that we are going to read is the speech of who? How knowledgeable is the teacher that's talking in the book? Because you will see some verses and it's going to be apparently contradicting what you're experiencing. And then you'll say, oh, like 14 centuries ago, yeah. If you have this tendency, then this means what? You don't know who the speaker is. Actually, you think that the speaker is somebody from 14 centuries ago, a human being, right? Who is the teacher? This is number one. Who is the teacher in this example? If we take it as an example, who is the teacher that's talking in the Quran? Who is the speaker? Who is Allah? Who is God?
The most knowledgeable.
The most knowledgeable. What is the extent of this? The most knowledgeable.
For all times.
All times.
Yeah.
So let's make it more practical. What does it mean? Still, it's too distant.
I mean, from a professor perspective, maybe as you said, the Nobel laureate, someone who's an expert in the field.
Like, for example, does he know why, let's say, this sister is now thinking about, like,
Yeah.
and what she went through yesterday?
Yeah.
Likewise, you. And then speaking accordingly. Like, whoever is speaking in here is actually aware of what I'm going through. Not roughly speaking, 20 years old, 25 years old in Philadelphia, they generally go through such stuff. That's what we were talking as we were walking here. What is going on in college students' mind? I can make a general guess, but do I know what's going through Junaid's mind? I don't. Like, I'm trying to carve my speech according to Junaid, but I don't really know what Junaid has been going through. What is his background? I'm making a guess and making my talk, right? This is why when I am talking, Junaid might assume that, okay, this guy seems to be knowledgeable, but what he says does not apply to me 100% because he doesn't know everything about me. He's just talking in general, right? But somehow, if I were to have a camera from the childhood in Junaid's house, and I know everything about Junaid, and actually I was directly speaking to Junaid today, you would pay more attention, won't you? You would say that this guy knows everything about me, and then I should pay more attention. So the first part then matters. How much am I conscious of the teacher? Who is speaking in this text? How much am I conscious of that person? That one, let's call it this way, not person, but who that is. The second part is conscious of being a student. Everybody in this room has a student ID. Technically, you guys are Penn students. But does a student ID really make you a student? What does it mean to be a student? Any idea? Like what it means, let's again start from our example. What it means that a person is a student on campus officially, yet you would say he's not really a student. He's just a party boy. Like he's here, technically officially a student with an ID, but he's anything but a student. Would such a person get any guidance?
I think if you're conscious of being a student, you have to be conscious of that you actually need to learn and like, actually need to participate in your classes and stuff like that. And that you're open to like being wrong or like being, I guess, that you don't know everything.
And you have a purpose for being there,
Yeah.
which is to learn.
Yeah.
Because it might be that, yes, I am in the classroom and the teacher is really a Nobel laureate, so knowledgeable, but I am indifferent. I think I am here just to, I don't know why I am here either. I prefer to be rather doing what's it called, a Black Friday shopping during the class, right? Because I'm not in the mindset of a student yet. So I am not conscious of what it means to be a student. Will I get guidance? Even if the teacher is the best, will I get guidance out of this? Because I am not there. I'm not realizing what are my responsibilities, what is my purpose, what's my goal, right? And then there's this third component. Student is on campus, aware of what it means to be a student, aware that the teacher is very knowledgeable, but then not really conscious of the value of interactions in the college environment and the resources that the college is putting forth, such as, oh, there are those assignments, there's this library, there's this, I don't know, robotics lab, and you have a robotics class. Many resources out there for you to really engage in the activity of learning. It's not only left for the lecture. Students said, the teacher says, okay, we made this math resource center so that you go there and apply what I learned, ask your questions, right? This is another part of it. You cannot simply be a student, a proper student, and receive guidance simply attending the lecture. You really need to benefit because university is not just a classroom. It's made with all those other resources, which is aiding the learning experience, right? If you put all these three together, then you start becoming like benefiting from the instruction itself. Otherwise, you're just being present on campus, but you're not benefiting from guidance. You're not receiving guidance, knowledge in our analogy. So roughly, we would apply this to what it means to be muttaqeen, like conscious. I need to be conscious of who the teacher is, who is the speaker. I need to be conscious of who am I in this life, what is my role in this life. And then why am I in this classroom environment? I am put in this environment. Why? It's a specific environment.
There's another one.
Let me try this one. Sorry. This one, good. So, and it looks like this is, if you look at the verse, now let's go back to the structure of the verse. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. So this is a book. This is the book, not a book. This is the book upon which or in which there is no doubt. And it is guidance for the conscious, God conscious, self-conscious, classroom conscious, or the campus conscious, right? So do you see now the relationship between them? What's your take from there? The book is going to be useful. Yeah.
I will just give kind of like an opposite examples just to clear some certain things in my mind. So there's one specific understanding of this item, which is relates to a story, child story. Who knows the story, the new clothes of the emperor? Anyone know? So there's the emperor who's so into the clothing fashion. He says, "Okay, bring me the best tailors who would make me the best dresses." Story goes, the clever tailors comes they're not even clever, but the tailor, they will just treat the emperor. They say, "Okay, we will do you the best clothes, but only clever ones can see it." So they do nothing, but they keep showing it. And emperor doesn't see anything, but because otherwise he would be labeled as non-clever, right? He would say, like he says, "Oh yeah, that's so beautiful." He even accept to wear it in a festival. So he wears nothing. He goes naked. And only one child is innocent and brave enough. Everybody else just keeps silent because everybody thinks otherwise they will be non-clever. The child says, "Wait a second, emperor is naked, don't you see?" And everybody starts saying, "Oh yeah, it is naked. He's naked." So this is the usual understanding of design. Let me clear with that, which is this is the Quran, and you will get guidance out of it only if you are pious, or only if we don't even know the meaning of the Muttaqeen. Muttaqeen is X, something good. You will get guidance out of it only if you are X. And you ask, what all these people who are not benefiting from this? You would simply say they are not X. That's so easy, right? So actually kind of preventing us getting any guidance. It becomes just I don't want to use the word, but it becomes a dogma, right? You just have to believe what is inside. Don't question. Otherwise, you will not be called X. Right? In our story, it was clever. Now Muttaqeen. So just accept it. This is also the usual way people would take any believer, say it Muslim or Christian. They would say these Christians, they Muslims, they just accept it. They call themselves as Muttaqeen, the X, and they accept it. Why? Just because they accept it. So then the ayah becomes the opposite of what it's suggesting.
And especially if we translate it as fearing God.
Fearing God, or even, when we put the emphasis on the God conscious, starting from the God, right? Like, where did you come up with the idea of God anyway? Right? When we look at the word, the Muttaqeen, and the structure of the ayah, we studied last a few weeks, and you are using God consciousness as the conclusion after all these weeks, which makes sense. When we look at the word and how this ayah, the first set of ayahs, don't also forget that. Like you open the Quran, and this is the first ayah after, of course, the opening chapter, the Fatiha. The first thing you see. So this is supposed to give you the foundation. It's not an ayah that you assumes that you are already Muslim. You already been through the training of the 23 years from Mecca to Medina, right? It does not assume that. It is giving you the foundation. So then how we take it, so going back to your example, and the Muttaqeen within this context, it will be explaining the following ayat, but those who are questioning, those who are so careful
with everything they do, everything they believe, everything they accept. So careful. These people would say, okay, people say this is true, this is not true, but I should be very careful. It can, because if I accept the wrong one, it may hurt me. These are the muttaqeens. When their father or mother or teacher tells something, they will be so careful. They will say, okay, I should be, be exploring it from every aspect. Otherwise, if I fit it into my mind, it can hurt me. These are the muttaqeen. So at the same time, these are the ones who are aware of themselves, conscious of themselves. They know that they are lacking. They have all these problems, they have all these questions in front of them, and they don't have any answer. They are conscious of this as well. They are honest to themselves, if you can say that. These are the muttaqeen. Right? They know that they are lacking, and they know there must be someone who can answer their questions. The teacher comes in. But you first start with yourself. You accept your lacking, just like Prophet ﷺ did. Right? He didn't know anything about God. He was supposed to teach us God and receive the first teaching himself. He didn't know about God except, what maybe he heard from other people before him. All he knew was that he didn't know how to read. Meaning he didn't know anything about his problems, how to solve them, what is going on with his humanity. He lived in the terrible times, just like we did. But the difference is we know all the answers. All of us can save the world in 2 weeks. Just give us the power and we can save it. That's our situation. Especially if you are at Penn and maybe from Wharton, then 1 week. Right? Some professors, they just need a few hours to write some blogs. With Prophet ﷺ, he was so conscious of himself. He said, I don't know how to do it. Somebody has to teach me. I was so conscious. There must be such a one who can teach me. So he was ready to receive it. And then he was ready to practice it, to implement his life, so interact with the environment and so on. But please never ever take such ayahs as whatever we read, it's good for us, we are Muslim. For others, they're so arrogant, man. They will not accept it. You have to be Muslim to accept it. Just the other way.
Yeah. So in this regard, this is very important, and actually follow-up verses will make it more clear. This is describing who can benefit from Quran. So I shouldn't read this for which category do I fit in, but rather I should read it as which category should I get into, try to be part of so that I benefit. Because it's going to talk about Muttaqeen, it's going to talk about Kafirs, it's going to talk about Munafiq eventually. And we generally tend to read it as, oh yeah, those guys over there, these are Kuffar. Those over here are Munafiq. What is left to me? And of course, Muttaqeen, right? There's a question here.
It's not such a question as
Okay.
it is sort of a reflection on what the brother was saying. I think that it's really easy to fall into the sort of affirmation that we as Muslims have the answers in the way that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did not have, at least prior to the revelation of the Quran. But I think that the issue with our ummah is that we don't actually have the answers, even though it's available for us. Not many of us actually engage with the answers in the way that Rasulullah did. And that's because of the way that it's sort of like the illusion of knowledge and the illusion of credibility and consciousness that's instilled within us in the way that a lot of cultures sort of evolved Islamic teachings into the way that they, bring up their children, especially within like Arab culture. Like I'm Palestinian, so there's just the assumption that as, you know, Palestinian and because the prophet was Palestinian that we just know, and there isn't necessarily an extended effort to teach your children what it means to be really Muslim, and not simply sort of like enforcing the salah on them, enforcing hijab on them, enforcing the siyam on them is enough for them to understand why we are Muslim and what those answers are. But it has such a detrimental effect on our population, particularly in the West, because I don't think that people, at least the Ummah, particularly in the West, is actually conscious of what it means to be Muslim and what it means to have those answers. Like myself included, I didn't realize the extent to which praying and not praying, for instance, makes you a believer and makes you like a non-believer. I've always like called myself a Muslim, but not many people actually understand that if you don't pray the 5 prayers a day, for instance, that technically like you become a disbeliever. Like there's it's when it comes like it's involved in that, but that's all to say that like there isn't a proper understanding and there isn't a proper engagement with the answers the way that the brother was saying, because we have this illusion of knowledge and illusion of consciousness, especially like people who are born into Islam and who don't necessarily revert.
And this is really affecting or preventing us benefiting from Quran in this regard. Because I have a false self-image. I think I know Quran. I mean, it's being even tougher if you know Arabic, because you feel like I know the language of the Quran, so I already know it. If you don't know Arabic, you can just grab a Quran and say, translation, I have Quran in between 2 of my fingers, right? Prophet didn't have this luxury. Like he never had Quran up until the end of 23 years. It looks like I have at a more advantageous position than the Prophet himself. He never had the Quran in between, like as a complete up until the end of it. This is first a wrong self-perception, I know. This is from a Muslim point of view. But even if you were not born into a Muslim environment, still self-perception is, I'm a scientist and I know. Do I really know, brother, because emphasis in there, the Prophet being able to say that I do not know was such a rich self-consciousness. What do I know? How do I learn? Like being able to confess this was super important. Then Quran started becoming a guidance to him, because he's the first address of the Quran. The first revelation came to him, and he was the most guided person because he was the most, like the one that fits this description the most, like conscious. So, and then getting to know who the teacher is really, I mean, I find myself hard to wrap my head around it. Technically, in theory, generally, we say that, yeah, God is all-knowing. But what is the scale of this all-knowing? If you really, really think God is all-knowing, then when you have a heartbreak, who are you going to call? Your mom. Why? Because you think she knows you the best. Have you ever tried calling your creator? Doesn't he know you more? How do you call your creator? Like, it didn't even occur to us that there is someone who knows me better than my mom that I can converse with, that I can reach out to ask about. It doesn't even occur. Like, what Quran is good for? If this speech is coming from an all-knowing, and I really mean all-knowing, then I would ask him, won't I? This is why we should double check when we say it's coming from an all-knowing creator. Do you really mean it or no? Do you really mean it? Because I might say that, yeah, this guy's a Nobel laureate, but yeah, I heard that Nobel laureate is something good. And there's the title of the guy, Nobel laureate. What does Nobel laureate mean? That means the guy is really, really the best of this field, right? All-knowing really, really means, as it applies to you, knows everything about you. And why are you getting annoyed by this thingy? And actually, he put this annoying thing in your life, and he has a message for you there, and you're not able to make anything out of it. You better ask him, why did you put this before me, right? So this is being conscious of the teacher. And actually, throughout our life, we will unfold what it means that all knowledgeable. It's not, after this discussion, yeah, we conclude that he's all knowledgeable. Your understanding of all knowledgeable will change over time. The word will be the same, but what it means to you will change over time. You say, oh, even this, he even knows that. I never thought about this. I never recognized it. I don't know if this makes sense. Our perception of the teacher changes over time. By teacher here, I refer to the creator now. And to the extent that you get to know your creator more, the same Quran will start speaking to you in more depth.
I wanted to add
Go ahead.
So something that resonated when you were explaining, if I did not understand the concept, let's assume you're a student and you don't understand the concept. The level at which you are at, you expect the teacher to speak to you at that level. So the way I explain, for example, like physics to a 5-year-old is not the same thing that I would do to a high school student or university student or a professor. So it will vary. And the expectation of the student is that the explanation will meet me at my level. What's interesting here from your explanation is that however I am, wherever I am, in my understanding or in my experience as a human being, regardless of my feelings, my questions, my doubts, my everything as a human being, as I am exposed, I expect this book or my creator to speak to me and address these needs that I have at my level, not at somebody else's level. Very, very personal experience, so that it addresses my limitedness, my doubts, the purpose of my life. So when you started talking about this duality of student teacher, very important to me, at least to kind of relate to it, is that as I read, it will address my needs. So I just wanted to share.
Because the speech doesn't change, right? It is the same text for the 14th centuries, and there are all different people in this room. Everybody's coming from a different background. Everybody had something different in their life today, but same speech is addressing all of you. Same speech tells something slightly different to all of you. And actually, the same speech will keep telling slightly different things throughout your life. How can I say that? To the extent that I realize really the speaker is not only all knowledgeable, the speaker is ever living. Speaker is not dead. Speaker knows yesterday and tomorrow. To the extent that I get to know the teacher, then I should be able to say this. If not, if I only know the teacher as, I don't know, all merciful, like just if I reduce the teacher to one aspect only, then I will seek wisdom only from this aspect. If I say he is physics Nobel laureate and he gives a lecture and he makes a comment about biology, and you're a biology undergrad student, okay? And you notice that what he said is not that accurate. What would you say? Like his Nobel laureateness does not apply to biology. Okay, he knows about physics. Whatever he says about physics, if it contradicts my understanding, I will doubt myself. Because this guy's more knowledgeable. But I'm a biology undergrad. He doesn't have a say in biology. It's likely that he's just glossing over something, right? When it comes to the speaker in the Quran, how much we know? All knowledgeable is just one aspect. Is he all caring at the same time? And do you agree with that? Do you really feel like he's all caring? I'm not talking about you assuming or generally as an umbrella term, he's all good. Yeah.
I feel like my question here then though, like I feel like I heard like I know someone brought up culture earlier, and I feel like I grew up in like Islamic school and stuff like that, and where the lens of seeing Allah, like of course we see Allah as like the most merciful and like Jannah and all these things that we learn what's so great about Allah. But at the same time, I feel like it's very hard for me, at least personally, in this aspect, to get past like the whole concept of hellfire, right? And about how do you see Allah through the lens? Like, I know we have to look at Allah through His fullness, and yet, for me, I feel like I often struggle in terms of this part of Islam about like how do I see Allah as the most merciful and like the most compassionate and the most kind, and then yet the possibility of like someone going to hellfire still exists. And I don't know, like I feel like in Surah Al-Baqarah, like when I was learning it in Islamic school, like that was something that I often questioned is like Allah is the most merciful, and yet like we still have that possibility as like Islamically and as Muslims of like if you're a Muttaqeen and like if you're a part of those groups of people, like you will experience hellfire. Yeah.
My daughter, she was asking the same question a few weeks ago to my wife, saying that like we have a friend and the wife is Christian, husband is like Muslim, and the daughters are of the same age. So my daughter comes and says, "Is Aliya's mom going to hell?" Like she's concerned about it. In Islamic school, they teach her that if you are not from this clique, then you go to hell. And she asked that question. Very rightful. Then how would you say? I will leave it as a question. I won't answer your question, but this is a very legitimate question. So how do I know God is merciful then? Right? This is one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is, and this is what my atheist friend, and still today you can find it in atheist websites, if God is really merciful as you claim, then why are those innocent kids are dying in war zones? Or not even that, why is a butterfly just living for a day and then dying as if it's something so valueless? Where is mercy in there? Okay, yeah, God is merciful to create a beautiful butterfly, you say, sure. But the same God is killing the same butterfly at the end of the day. It's just living one day. Where is mercy in here, right? So to the extent that I am thoroughly convinced that he is merciful, then it's going to speak to me. If I am not that sure about, and I'm talking about being convinced, this is an important word that will follow up actually, come, then I wouldn't expect to see this in the book. This is why guidance that I receive is extremely related to how I know the teacher. To the extent that I know the teacher, I will benefit. To the extent I know myself, I will benefit. To the extent that I know the environment that I interact in, this is the school that I'm created in, I'll get benefits. So these are the three. There was a question?
No, I just think that the environment aspect of what you're describing is really important, or at least the context in which you're interacting as a student and as a teacher, or in this case, as a believer and as Allah, because I think that what like I struggle with in particular is being able to contextualize my engagements with Islam as part of the extended akhirah and not just the dunya that I'm a part of, and that like being able to actually perceive the akhirah for what it is and what the purpose of the dunya is and securing my spot in akhirah has allowed me, because I had the same struggles of like what is the point of hellfire, why are the children in Gaza consistently being bombed. And when I'm able to like go back and reflect on like how short the dunya is in comparison to the akhirah and what the akhirah really is, then it's much easier for me to be able to perceive and to understand the mercy of Allah. Because then I can understand that, okay, when children in Gaza are suffering, they're going to be rewarded for it in the akhirah. And in that regard, that is their justice. And I like, as a believer, would much rather be, I mean, not to like glorify violence or anything like that, but would much rather be in the position of a martyr from Gaza than I would in the current position that I am, knowing the mercy that they're going to receive from Allah and the position that they'll have in the akhirah, compared to me who has to like actively fight and like really engage and be intentional and learn about Islam and how that might secure my spot.
And in regards to then how Quran is staging, because still this verse, like the previous verse before this one was Alif Lam Mim, just 3 letters. That's the first verse. It's really staging us how you're going to benefit from this text. And in this regard, making us question, where am I? Because whatever you bring to Quran, you will benefit as much from it. So this is where we are. The next verse starts describing who those muttaqeen are. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, who believe in the unseen. We will unpack this. This is just a very poor translation at the moment. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ, are steadfast in prayer. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, and spend out of what we have provided for them. So in the previous one, I was intentionally making it 3 stages for Muttaqeen, just to mimic these 3 stages in here. يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, believe in the unseen. We will unpack this today, or try to unpack it partially. Then يقيمون الصلاة, doing the prayer, which is an individual, mostly an individual act, but which makes you become conscious of yourself. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, you give charity to others. Again, this is a very poor translation, but you are interacting with the environment, which is going to affect your guidance. We'll unpack the remaining two later on. Today, I will only continue with يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Probably we'll just touch it. We only have 15 minutes. I don't know if it's a good idea to get into this, but if you have comments before I answer that, I will welcome it. Otherwise, I would like to go there. Please go ahead.
I will prevent you no, I really like the question by the sister. So I think if we touch upon it at least just 15 minutes, it really beneficial. So sometimes what happens with the kids, you just get angry and then you shout at them. We don't do it, but hypothetically speaking. Shout at them.
Some unconscious father out there.
Yeah, and then they get, upset. They say, okay, I don't like you in some way. And you get more upset and angry. And you say, no, I love you. So I do it just because I did this because I love you. You have to accept that I love you. That's usually our attitude. Like we shout at them, we show our worst face, worst behavior, but then ask them and expect them to believe that we love them. Right? And if they don't, we get even more angry. Why? Because we have authority. We have expectation, ownership over them. And let's be unpopular. So they have to do whatever we want, including loving us. So unfortunately, sometimes this is the way we take things like He's the all merciful. Except He's the all merciful. Otherwise, He will slap you in hellfire, which is like a contradiction of what is expected to believe in anyway. So, and where the understanding comes from, the other people already touched upon that. There's this cultural aspect of it, right? Since childhood, we were expected to memorize certain things and believe them because our seniors, the family, fathers, mothers, they all repeated. They want us to believe. So we have to believe them. So we always start with these preconceptions. The God is all merciful. Again, let's be honest, we most of the time don't even understand the extent, as you said, what it means to be all merciful firsthand. What it really means.
And if it's a guidance, how do I confirm it?
Exactly.
How is it undoubtedly true?
Yes. So we start from there. The God is all merciful, all knowledgeable as a word. Right? We say, oh, yes, Al-Rahman, Al-Hakim, whatever, right? We put the Arabic words, especially if you don't know Arabic, it becomes more convincing for you. Because it becomes like a technical term. In science, right? There are many studies showing that when you show some technical jargon, especially when people don't know them, it becomes more convincing. We apply the same trick to ourselves. We use this term, we become more convinced. And then when we have a problem, but what about the hellfire? What about the Gaza? What about, my child? Or what about even Gaza? Not in that sense. I have issues with my child. When it comes to them, we try to save the family. Instead of to understand it, we say, okay, yeah, but there's this one as well as another ayah. Let's put them together. Maybe it will save us. I also heard something from another scholar, right? He said, yes, he is so merciful, which means this and that, some grammatical, the tricks. And now we say, you see, it's consistent. As long as it's consistent, as long as it's not for crazy people, we are okay with that. And we call this as understanding. Right? I have some references from Buhari, some other references from some scholars with very good understanding of the Arabic. And I also seen some ayahs myself. I'm done with it. But deep inside, it's still burning. Deep inside, we still get so angry when we see all this injustice, or when we think about, forget about the injustice. The hellfire is most, and like a first and foremost, get us angry because of us. I know that I am not perfect, and there is a possibility. And with me, it's a big possibility. I don't know about the others, but there's a big possibility that this fire will touch me. How am I supposed to believe that he is the all-merciful? What am I going to do that? The consistency in the Arabic language will not save you. Let's be honest. So what is then the solution? Quran tells us the solution. With every ayah, like we know, for instance, the God is all-knowing or all-merciful, because at the end of some ayahs, it says, that there are phrases like, Inna Allah Rahman Rahim, or whatever. Yes. The ayah ends with that, giving the name. Is there Rahman, all merciful? We usually just copy this and apply it everywhere, but ayah doesn't go like that. Ayah starts from what you see in your life. What happens when it rains, for instance? That don't you see we sent down rain? Don't you see we make the dead earth alive again? Grow some food out of it, feed the cattle, and then feed you, so on and so forth. And then he puts at the end, as a conclusion, that he is all merciful. As if telling us, don't memorize these words. Look at your life. Look what you see there. Study rain as a muttaqeen. Meaning we will study next week when we study on 3, right? Look at it and ask the question, what is going on, man? I mean, the water is coming down from the up sky so that some, the dry earth will flourish. Now I will get food. What kind of system is this? Ask this question. And Quran tells us, I guarantee you, if you really question, if you ask the right questions, if you study it, I promise you, you will conclude, not memory, but you will conclude, whoever is making this must be merciful. When you do that, with everything in your life, one by one, but just the Quran suggests, not by memorizing it. Study rain, study your father, study your mother. Quran says, we made you, come together as couples. We created you out of water and then create relationships between you because we are such and such. Study your family relationship. Study how a lady can fall in love with a guy or vice versa. How even this is possible? Ask this question. Right? Study them as muttaqeen, and Quran promises us. If you study, you will end up with his conclusion. And what happens then? In every moment of your life, you study and you conclude that, oh, there must be a merciful one doing this. Oh, there must be a merciful one doing that. And then when you see something you cannot explain firsthand, like a first sight, You said, wait a second, I have all these evidences so far. Whatever is happening in my life, it's being by a merciful one. And I bear witness, shahada, that's the term used, right? I bear witness with my naked eyes that the mercy is there in every instance of my life. Now you say, okay, there must be wisdom in this as well. And I will try to understand just the way I understand the mercy in rain. In short, it's like, as Brother Yusuf said, actually it was Asm, right? Said, sometimes you are at the level of primary school, mid school, high school, college. You never ever even concluded that there must be a merciful one when it is raining. Start from there. Conclude yourself. Just like in mathematics or in any engineering, I don't know about the others, but in engineering, you start with easy equations. Before solving them, you cannot solve hard equations. The Quran is telling us, solve all these easy equations first. Look at the rain, see the mercy, then I promise you, you will see mercy in war zone as well. Even when I talk about the hellfire, you will read it and you will be honest, saying that that makes sense. That made perfect sense. I'm so glad that my creator is such. But only if first you study this child, see mercy there. In the rain, see mercy with your eyes, not with others. Your eyes. See it, and then you can solve the harder problems.
And inshallah, as we will cover, since Brother Birkam prevented us to get into here, thankfully. So when we talk about yu'minuna bil ghaib, we will see that actually this doesn't mean having faith in the unseen or believing in the unseen. This is not going to be how we will unpack it as Quran shows it, because it's going to talk about, going back to the question, they are certain about afterlife, which means, are you certain about hell, for instance? Are you certain that such a thing exists? Or you have faith that it exists? Like, I have faith that this child is going to become a successful person at one day. That's what faith means, right? I have faith in you. Or I believe you are going to become successful. Can I say that I am certain he's going to become successful? Can I say that? Nobody in this room can say it, right? So we don't have certainty on that. Are you certain that hell exists? Are you certain that paradise exists? This is going to be part of الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. They are having iman in the unseen, but as we will see, iman doesn't mean having a wishy-washy faith. And this is going to be, again, affecting how I receive guidance from Quran. And just with this final comment, we talked about it being guidance. So even when Quran mentions existence of hell, it's going to be guidance. This is why we dwelt so much on the word guidance. We gave the example of the signpost for New York being a guidance. The signpost itself is not New York. It is a pointer to New York. Quran mentions hell. Quran mentions paradise. It's a guidance. How do I confirm it? There must be a way. Otherwise, it's not called guidance. There must be a way that I will follow the sign and arrive to that conclusion for certainty. Otherwise, I'm not taking a guidebook. I am taking a storybook. I am taking a fiction book, not a guidebook. That's why this first verse is really setting our expectations from Quran, and it's why so important, so that we will benefit accordingly. Otherwise, if I don't set it properly, I can read Quran as a history book. I can read Quran as a fiction book, although I would still call it divine guidance and whatever. But in fact, it's no more than a guidance to me than the Lord of the Rings is. Did you guys read the Lord of the Rings? I was a nerd. I read it. I memorized parts of it. So nice, and you can get lessons out of it too. Like it's not that it's just fiction that you read for fun, but it's not a. It's way different than what Quran is supposed to be. So let's pause here, inshallah, and next week we will start with belief in the unseen. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين الفاتحة.